In today's video, you are going to learn 3 JavaScript tips that have definitely helped me in my everyday professional development. And I think that they can really save you some time and really come in handy from time to time. So the first tip that we're going to talk about is using console.log, but with objects. And I think that this can really allow for more readable console logs that help you debug and just speed up your workflow overall. So let me show you an example of what this looks like. So here, on line 6, I define a first name named Karen, my mother's name. And then on line 7, I define a constant called age, 35, not my mother's age. And then on line 8, I define an occupation and I assign it to the value of teacher, which was my mother's occupation before she retired, which might give you an indication that she's a little older than 35 here. So on the line 10, I first console log these 3 different variables just with a normal console log statement. I separate them by commas and I console log all these out. But then on line 12, I console log the same 3 variables, but I pass in an object to console.log. So I pass in an object here, and then basically with JavaScript shorthand properties, and that could be a tip in itself is to use JavaScript shorthand properties. But here, what I'm doing is I'm assigning the property first name to my variable here, first name. So first name is assigned to Karen, age is assigned to 35, occupation is assigned to teacher. And then what this is going to do for me is that when I console log this, you're going to see my first console log here, right here without the object, it just gives Karen 35 teacher. And if I see this in my console, like if I'm running a live application and this is in my web console here, I'm going to see this and it's not totally clear to me that these are 3 different variables. It's not totally clear to me what variables these come from and what data I'm actually logging to my console. But when I console log my object here, you can see very clearly, okay, when I console log my variable first name, the value here is Karen. And then when I console log age, the value is 35. And then occupation is teacher. So by passing in an object to your console log statement here, it gives you a nice readable label here for the values that you're console logging, which in my opinion is far better than just console logging different variables separated by commas. And then you get this output and you're not really totally clear on, what variable is tied to this value and so on and so forth. So the first tip here is passing in an object and using JavaScript shorthand properties to console log things within your programs to give yourself a nice label for the different values in your programs. Now the second tip here is going to be how to sort an array, but not just any old sort, how to sort an array alphabetically. On line 23, I have an array with different just strings in it. EGAZR. Clearly, they are not sorted alphabetically. But how could I sort this alphabetically? Well, the way that I can do this is I can use the local compare method on a string here. And what JavaScript's going to do here with the local compare method is it's basically going to return, okay, when comparing these 2 different strings, so I'm comparing this string to whatever string I pass in, which one should be in front of the other when it comes to their order. And then if I want to sort this array here, I can use the sort method. And then the sort method, it takes a callback function here. So I pass in an inline function and it will automatically pass 2 different values of my array. And then since I know those values are going to be strings here, I can call the local compare method on the string and pass in another value. And that's going to return what value should be in front of the other. So here, when I console log my unsorted array as well as my sorted array, what you see is both of my arrays here get sorted alphabetically using this .local compare method. So this does also tell you that the sort method, it does mutate things in place. Now, what if I just want to create a copy of my sorted array? Well, the way that I can do this is before I call my sort method, I can actually call the .slice method and make a copy of this array here. And then when I run this again, you see that my unsorted array, it remains unchanged, but my sorted array does get sorted alphabetically here. And then also, if you wanted to do something like ignore the casing of these values here as a capital A is technically different in their ordering than a lowercase a, you could just call the toLowercase function before you call your compare function. So this would return a lowercase number, and then this would make the comparison here. And that would also allow you to sort, and it would be case insensitive, meaning the casing wouldn't matter, which can definitely be helpful from time to time. Now, what if you don't have just like a simple array like this? What if you actually have an array of objects here? So on line 17, I have an array of objects in which each object has a name property assigned to a value that is a string. And say I want to sort this by their name. Well, here, I can use the very same kind of method here, this very same function, but what I need to do is I know that this value here, it's not going to be just a string. This is going to be an object. So I actually need to make sure to access my name property here on these objects before I do my comparison. And then if I make sure to do that, then you see that in my sorted array, I do get these sorted by name here. And then since I still use the slice method to create a copy, I did not mutate my original array. But just know that if I don't call this slice method before I make the copy, that it will mutate my original array. As you can see, it does there. All right, so the second tip here is if you want to sort something alphabetically within JavaScript, you can use the sort method, but then also with that, you can call the .localCompare method on your strings, and that will return what order that those strings should be in. And then make sure that if you don't want to mutate your original array, make sure to use the slice method to create a copy. And then you can also use the .lowercase or the .uppercase method to kind of ignore case when doing your sorting. All right. Now, the third and final tip here of this video is going to be the best way to initialize arrays. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, can't you just initialize an array with just an empty pair of square brackets? Well, yeah, you definitely can. And in a lot of circumstances, that is going to be just fine. But sometimes you want to initialize an array and have some values in that array when you start out. And if it's a small amount of values that you need in that array, you could definitely just do something like this. However, what if I had like 100 different values that I want to put in this initial data array here on line 35? Well, it would be, how annoying would it be to sit here and just put value after value in that array? That wouldn't be the best time. You know, we want to earn a higher income per character stroke. So the way that we can fix this is you can actually initialize an array using the array constructor function, and then you can fill that array using the fill method. So here on line 36, the way that you can initialize an array that can sometimes come in handy when needing to fill an array with a decent amount of values is using the array constructor function. So I call a new array, and then I pass in the amount of values I want in my array. So I want an array here of 10 values. And then all you need to do to fill that array with some different values is call the .fill method on your array here, and that is going to fill your array. So here I'm creating a new array with 10 values and filling that with a value of 0. Console.log this here. You're going to see that in both instances here for my initial data and my initial data 2, I effectively get the same thing here. I get an array initialized with some zeros within it. Now, just to show you that if you wanted to initialize an array that has a lot more data in it, say you want 100 values, then I could do the same thing. And then let's say we actually want 100 values of a Boolean here of true, just to show you that you can fill it with whatever you want. And then I run this, you can see that I get an array with 100 different trues within it. Okay. So to initialize an array, and this can especially be helpful for initializing an array that you need a lot of values in it, you can call the new array constructor function within JavaScript, pass in how many values you want in that array, and then you can call the .fill method on your array here and fill it with however many values you want. And then as you can see, that will return a new array here with the number of values you specify here, and then you fill that array with whatever value you pass into here, which is much easier than doing this all manually. Now, This can also be really helpful if you ever need to create like a 2D matrix within JavaScript. So here on line 41, I define a constant matrix, and then I do the same thing. I create a new array, and then I fill it with the value of 0. But what if I want this actually to be an array that contains arrays? So out of my 5 values in my original array, I actually just want to fill that array with other arrays. So what you can do is you can construct your new array, and then you can call the .map method. And then what this is going to do is for every value in my original array that has 5 different values, I'm going to actually construct a new array and fill that with 5 different values of the value of 0. So this is going to create a matrix here in which my original array is going to have 5 values, and then I'm going to map over those 5 values. And then for each of those values, I'm going to return an array of 5 different values with the value of 0 within inside. So if I console log this, you're going to see that I get an original array with 5 different values here. In this case, it's going to be 5 different arrays that are all filled with the value of 0. So if you need to create a matrix within JavaScript, a good way to do that is using this array constructor method and then mapping over that and then calling the constructor method again and then filling that with whatever value you want within your matrix. So those are 3 JavaScript tips that I think can definitely come in handy from time to time and can really save you some time if you know about them. So thanks for tuning into this. Stay tuned for more episodes that are going to help you with your web development, and I will see you in that next one.